Hey, what's up guys? Mikey here. Lately, I've been anxious because I've been thinking about everything I've done for the past few years, aka my entire life, and I'm worried that everything I've done has just been bad. But on the other hand, I've never been summoned to a courtroom to face a jury or get summoned for jury duty, so at the very least, that's nice knowing that nothing I've done has been bad enough to end up in Davy Jones's locker, aka hell. Mr. Krabs has always been cheap. It's his biggest defining character trait. Steven Hillenburg always intended for Mr. Krabs to be the secondary antagonist of the show, and sometimes there are episodes that do address specific character traits like that. Born Again Krabs is the episode where Mr. Krabs ends up in the hospital after eating a moldy Krabby Patty and has to become generous to not end up in hell, aka Davy Jones' locker. This episode aired on October 4, 2003, and is actually the last episode of the show to air in the year 2003, because its sister episode, episode 110, I Had an Accident, actually aired first when it was broadcasted on TV for the first time. Future airings would have this episode air first, which is how they are listed on the list of episodes. This kind of thing happens with episodes later in the show, but you wouldn't remember this unless you were there watching it for the first time. This is also the only episode in Season 3 where the Flying Dutchman appears on screen, and the episode that introduces SpongeBob's version of hell.
Davy Jones' Locker!
Davy Jones' Locker is an actual real-life metaphor for the final resting place for sailors if they end up drowning out at sea. Davy Jones' Locker is often used as an exclamation by characters in the show, especially Mr. Krabs, in place of saying holy shit.
David H. Jones!
And is sometimes shown in later seasons, especially alongside the Dutchman himself, and Davy Jones himself is even shown in person alongside his locker in episode 217, SpongeBob SquarePants vs. the Big One from season 6. Mr. Krabs' cheapness and greed is touched on quite often in the series, but in my opinion, this episode is the first major time his cheapness was given a big spotlight. It has popped up every now and then, like in episode 64, The Smoking Peanut from season 2, where Mr. Krabs takes stuff from the zoo on free day, but his greediness has gotten more spotlight than him being cheap up to this point in the show, in my opinion. Most notably with episode 34, Arg from season 1, where his greediness makes him not want to share the Flying Dutchman's treasure with SpongeBob and Patrick, and episode 77, Jellyfish Hunter from season 2, where his plan to make more money involves animal abuse. Both of these involve a way of Mr. Krabs actually making more money. This one, I'd argue, is way more about cheapness than greediness, since Mr. Krabs is trying to save money by selling that old Krabby Patty before making a new one, and because the Flying Dutchman said Mr. Krabs was being cheap.
Ah, but you were cheap, and being cheap is a terrible thing.
Feel free to disagree, but this is the way I personally see it. And now, without further ado, let's finally check out this episode purely for one of the best SpongeBob characters. So the episode starts up and the title card music is great. One night at the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob noticed a rotten Krabby Patty from under the grill. He tried to throw it away, but an alarm went off that notified Mr. Krabs that something was thrown out.
Pinch-O-Matic has saved you 5.2 cents.
How does a fraction of a cent exist? SpongeBob told Mr. Krabs the patty was moldy from being under grill, but Mr. Krabs told him he had to sell it anyway. The next day, when SpongeBob tried to give it to Squidward so he would sell it, the customer literally flipped out. After weeks without anybody coming, Squidward said nobody was coming because of Mr. Krabs' insistence on selling that rotten Krabby Patty. It was so rotten that it had to be put in a cage because it came alive and growled at the Krusty crew. Mr. Krabs took the patty out of the cage and was able to tame it, but as soon as he ate it, Mr. Krabs ended up in the hospital, but they were able to save his life. The doctor checked his chart and was so terrified that he ran away. And yet, we never learned what the report said. Then the Flying Dutchman arrived. Mr. Krabs tried to fool him by saying his name was Harold Flower, but he was found out pretty quickly. The Flying Dutchman was there to escort Mr. Krabs to Davy Jones's locker, the resting place for all bad undersea folk, for being cheap. When they arrived, it was smelly because of Davy Jones's gym socks. I'm sure being a member of the Monkees was a lot of work. Mr. Krabs broke down and begged the Dutchman to give him another chance. He agreed as long as Mr. Krabs would become generous, and Mr. Krabs promised to change. Back at the Krusty Krab, it looked like it was going to go out of business forever. SpongeBob was heartbroken, and Squidward attempted to rob Mr. Krabs. Then he actually arrived back in, and SpongeBob was overjoyed. Mr. Krabs said he realized how much he loved money in his life and promised to be more generous from now on. Later that day, the Krusty Krab was reopened, and Mr. Krabs treated the customers a lot better by giving them free toys and refills. He made his office an employee lounge so Squidward could sleep at work. He even got a movie that wasn't in the theaters yet for one customer in particular. Mr. Krabs was very happy to see how happy his generosity made the customers. Then Squidward brought Mr. Krabs his mail, which was a credit card bill for 10 grand. But it turns out he had absolutely nothing in the cash register. Wasn't there any money in the safe he could use to pay the bill? SpongeBob and Squidward started to worry about Mr. Krabs being okay with bankruptcy. Mr. Krabs thought he was still in the hospital sleeping, but the others made him realize it was reality. He started to freak out and take back all of his generosity. Just charge $1 or $2 for everything you gave away for free. One guy even almost lost his arm by Mr. Krabs over a penny. The Flying Dutchman appeared and said that literal penny pinching resulted in Mr. Krabs being put to rest in Davy Jones's locker. Right before he was taken away, SpongeBob backsassed the Flying Dutchman, saying Mr. Krabs wasn't cheap. So he and the Dutchman made a bet over whether or not Krabs would sell SpongeBob's soul. The Dutchman asked Mr. Krabs if he'd want SpongeBob or the 62 cents he had in his pocket. Mr. Krabs chose the money, and SpongeBob was taken away. Squidward snapped at Mr. Krabs for selling SpongeBob for 62 cents.
You think I could have gotten more?
Yes, you could have gotten 63 cents. Mr. Krabs realized he was wrong again and wanted SpongeBob back. The Dutchman gave him back, but it was because SpongeBob kept fast talking about shit he liked, which drove the Dutchman crazy. After he left, SpongeBob said the trading for pocket change was for the Krusty Krab, and he would have done the same thing before he denies it. The Krusty crew laughs, and the episode ends. Kidding! At Davy Jones's locker, SpongeBob calls the Dutchman, rambling fast about hanging out more, and the episode ends. So that was Again Krabs, and that is a really good episode. I love that this episode addresses Mr. Krabs' cheapness and decides that he wants to change for the better. Mr. Krabs is really strong in this episode. He does make SpongeBob try and sell the old Krabby Patty, but he didn't say something like, "Sell that patty or you're fired, boyo." I also like he's able to stand up to the moldy Krabby Patty, and I always found it humorous when he tried to fool the Flying Dutchman. When he does promise to be generous, I love how he realized how happy everybody else was thanks to his generosity. He wanted to change, and it did stick for a while. Shame it was the same day he left from the hospital, though.
You checked out of the hospital this morning.
But hey, it's nice that he tried to change it all. He could have just lied or manipulated the Dutchman by saying he would become generous just so he wouldn't be stuck in Davy Jones's locker, but he didn't. He truly tried to change, and that's great to see in my opinion. When he realized he sold SpongeBob, he realized the error of his ways again, and it was all because Squidward told him off. Again, it's nice that Mr. Krabs did show some remorse for selling SpongeBob. So much nicer than the later seasons where he clearly doesn't show much sympathy for almost anybody at all, no matter what the cost. So I'd say the way they utilized his cheapness in this episode, it was done really well. And speaking of Squidward, he's awesome too. I love how he snapped at Mr. Krabs for everything he did, when he kept trying to sell the rotten Krabby Patty, and especially when he told Krabs off for selling SpongeBob. I also think it's funny when he tries to open the safe, and his face when Mr. Krabs comes back from the hospital in this shot. It's also nice he doesn't care about the moldy patty, but then does the right thing when he tells Mr. Krabs it's the reason why they didn't have customers in weeks. Also, something else I just realized after this latest rewatch.
Have SpongeBob send back a patty and an iced tea, will ya?
Squidward asked for a Krabby Patty, showing he's willing to eat one. Some subtle continuity when he didn't like Krabby Patties earlier in the season, but now changed, and likes them after trying one in episode 85, just one bite. SpongeBob doesn't contribute much to the story itself, but he's also pretty strong too. Like when he's overjoyed to see Mr. Krabs, how quickly he recited the old Krusty Krab policy, and especially all of his reactions with the Flying Dutchman. Which of course brings us to the Purple Dr. Fish. I love the Flying Dutchman in this episode too. I am of course a huge fan of the character, and I always love when he shows up, no matter the context. He's just an overall great character. I love how he gets annoyed with SpongeBob's fast rambling at the end, and how he's able to scare anybody with just Davy Jones's locker. I think a lot of why I love him stems from his actor, Brian Doyle Murray. His screaming performance just gives the Dutchman a presence that strikes anybody in the room, even if it is out of fear. That, alongside his theme that is always used when he appears, known as Malleus Maleficarum, just makes me love him just for his presence. And this applies to all of his appearances in the show, not just this one. Now for some smaller things, I like SpongeBob and Squidward at closing time at the start, some characters that appear on this time card, the whole sequence with the Patty growling, and just the Davy Jones locker setting in general. I like this rewind gag with the customer who was watching the movie, Mr. Krabs screaming when he realizes he's in reality, the ambulance bit, and when Mr. Krabs tries to say he's Harold Flower when the Dutchman shows up. I just always get a stupid chuckle out of characters trying to come up with a fake name and go with the first thing they see or that comes to mind. Next up, my two nitpicks. One, when Mr. Krabs didn't have any money in the register to pay the bill, why didn't he look in the safe? And two, when this guy flips out of the Krusty Krab, we see others eating. Sure, we can't really make out what they're eating, but what is it since Mr. Krabs demanded the patty be sold before another one is? Alright, moving on. Finally, here are a few fun facts. On this rewatch, I noticed this painting of flowers in the hospital room. So there's two different flower sources where Mr. Krabs decided to call himself Harold Flower. Even though Mr. Krabs uses Harold as his fake name, a trading card series from 2009 and a comic from 2016 reveal that Harold is Mr. Krabs' middle name, Eugene Harold Krabs. The Flying Dutchman says he only had SpongeBob for 30 seconds.
I only had him for 30 seconds!
And the time span from when he leaves to when he comes back is exactly 30 seconds. Alright, so I'd say this episode is pretty solid. Maybe it could be slightly funnier than it turned out, but that's not too big a deal. Every character here is just so strong that I forgot I barely laughed at all. If anything, this episode is a great showcase of how strong and dynamic these characters can be when done right. I really love that. It's just too bad we didn't see a real Harold Flower to really show that Mr. Krabs wasn't Harold Flower though. Born Again Krabs is a good episode, with how strong the characters are, how the story plays out, and the funniness that is throughout the episode. It's pretty solid all around, especially thanks to the Flying Dutchman. I wish I could say more, but my worst nightmare has actually come true. Hell. I have no idea what I even did. But this says I have to come today, so I guess I'll probably find out while I'm there. Ow! Oh, my leg. Oh, stupid bee injury. Wait, that's it! I can't go outside now. There are bees and yellow jackets out there. I can't get stung. I don't want to get injured again. I Had an Accident is the episode where SpongeBob injures his butt and becomes too afraid to step outside again, no matter what Patrick and Sandy try to do. Like Born Again Krabs, this episode aired on October 4th, 2003, and as previously stated, aired first before that episode during the Let's Just Play Finish Line Festival event that it debuted alongside. Something I didn't even know existed until now. Now this episode, I have a lot of fun memories with. I still remember this one time in 7th grade where my best friend and I quoted this whole episode on the bus on our way to a field trip to a baseball game. I'm sure the people around us thought we were just weirdos since we could remember the whole episode word for word in the 7th grade. But that shows how much I watched it when I was still a teenager. And I can definitely relate with SpongeBob not wanting to do certain activities because of injury. I never got injured, but sometimes I'm just very particular about the rides I ride at theme parks. So let's watch this episode to relive the gorilla suit. So the episode starts up and Patrick is out of control on Sand Mountain. He crashes into the mountain and it turns out he was playing a video game on an unrealistically powerful Game Boy Color with 4 buttons. Then life imitates art. SpongeBob took his turn on the mountain and was shown to be a lot more careful and skilled at it. After he imitated Squidward, he had a near miss with a tree, and then loses control of his board and soon finds himself in a free fall. Sandy tells SpongeBob to land on his bottom, and he does, not his other bottom that Patrick suggested. SpongeBob doesn't have another bottom. Or does he? After a whole day, SpongeBob had finally recovered from his injuries, and the doctor told him to be more careful because if something like that happens again, he would wind up in the iron butt. SpongeBob decided to watch his ass at all times, Whenever he saw anybody near him or some spanking occurring, he got scared, and the 7-mile spanking machine was the third strike for him, and he ran home in fear. Well, if Bikini Bottom has more than 46,853 people, then I suppose a 7-mile spanking machine is possible. Later on, Patrick and Sandy arrived at his house to get him to go sandboarding again. But SpongeBob was just sitting in the middle of the floor, and he explained how he was lucky to survive an accident like that, and he didn't want to go outside again purely out of safety reasons to not get injured again. Sandy thought he was crazy, but SpongeBob explained all of her concerns away. Being lonesome, he had Penny, Chip, and used napkins at friends. His job at the Krusty Krab.
A really long spatula.
And eating, filter feeding. SpongeBob still refused to leave the house, and after going back and forth with Patrick about how serious he was, he just had Chip show them to the door. At the very least, he doesn't have to sit in the same spot all day every day. After they left, Sandy plotted to get SpongeBob to conquer his fear and come outside.
And that's when I punch him, right?
Patrick and Sandy started jellyfishing outside of SpongeBob's house. Patrick got stung by one, and SpongeBob had a new hobby where he tried collecting dust with a tiny net. The next plan was to get SpongeBob to come outside and make a birthday wish. Is it even SpongeBob's birthday? SpongeBob said he had all he wanted inside and sang a song about the safety of being indoors. Sandy got angry, and after a montage of Patrick holding ice cream and Sandy trying to find some more cool activities, SpongeBob just started filter feeding again. Their next plan was to have Patrick dress up as a gorilla and attack Sandy. When Patrick jumped out, he didn't even try to attack Sandy, and SpongeBob and even Chip knew that it was Patrick in a costume. Yeah, Patrick should have tried beating up Sandy or something to make it believable. Then another Patrick showed up, but with the real Patrick still being in the gorilla suit, a real gorilla was in the Patrick suit. The gorilla stuffed Patrick and Sandy in a sack and started beating the shit out of them, and SpongeBob was terrified for them. He was still hesitant on going outside to save them, but after talking with Chip, SpongeBob decided to put his fear aside to save Patrick and Sandy from the gorilla. And then Gary ate Chip. Rest in peace, Chip. SpongeBob very slowly went outside, and after getting hit in the face with a piece of paper, he was proud that he made it outside, right before he was ripped in half by the gorilla. He apologized for everything he put Patrick and Sandy through, and then questioned why a gorilla was underwater in the first place. The gorilla realized he was busted, and then rode off into the sunset on George, a black and white horse. The episode ends by showing a family watching the show in shock, and then turning off the TV in confusion. Truly the only way to end this episode. So that was I Had an Accident, and that is nothing less of an awesome episode. One of my favorite sequences of the whole season was the beginning at Sand Mountain. I know it's basically SpongeBob's version of a snowboarding mountain, but I always loved when that setting showed up. The sandboarding was always really fun to watch whenever the characters were on the mountain. It was cool when it appeared for the first time in episode 54, Pre-Hibernation Week from Season 2, and it's still fun here. I love seeing Patrick die in the video game and then in real life. And everything SpongeBob does when he's riding down the mountain, imitating Squidward and the part where he falls from the sky. I love the dynamic between Patrick and Sandy throughout the episode. It's so funny seeing Sandy get annoyed with Patrick so many times and how they still work together to get SpongeBob out of the house. The montage of them trying to get SpongeBob out of the house is funny in and of itself, and how it ends with the old guy asking for a bath even though he just had one. I like how SpongeBob knew the first gorilla was Patrick in a costume, showing he isn't as gullible as the modern seasons portray him. There are a lot of gags I just love every time I watch this one. Patrick's crazy talk followed by Sandy punching his head into a torso. Sorry. The yellow sand that Patrick eats, the iron butt, the 7-mile spanking machine, the really long spatula, the part with the boxing glove, when SpongeBob was upside down and not the mountain, and I could honestly keep going. I love how shocked everybody is when they see the fake Patrick show up with ice cream, and the gorilla scene always held my attention too, especially for the music that played. I also love Squidward. He only appears 4 times, but every single time he shows up is still hilarious.
Hey, Squidward!
No! Is this where the line starts? Stop naming moves after me!
Everybody's an idiot except for me.
Well, it's true.
I also love SpongeBob's character arc in this episode.
Get
off of me! Just help me! Help me!
You totally understand SpongeBob's fear of being injured again after the first time it happened. His fear isn't unreasonable either. Look at that x-ray. It was a procedure that took 20 hours in order for his gluteus maximus to make a full recovery. While I still say he didn't have to only sit on the floor all day long when he was alone, you can still understand his fear of not getting injured again. But when he sees his two best friends getting the beaten out of them by an ape, he still decides to risk it all to save them. And his fear wasn't of the gorilla, but of going outside. And he does conquer his fear, which is a really triumphant moment for him. Sure, he gets ripped in half, but he did get over his fear of the outdoors, even if it was at the cost of a new fear of gorillas. I wouldn't say SpongeBob was being too unreasonable by staying inside, but he was able to stay calm most of the time when talking to the others about it. The disagreement doesn't turn into an all-out brawl or something. And of course, the gorilla is a gem too. I love the effect of the live-action gorilla and the horse appearing in the animated setting. Now, time for some fun facts. The gorilla is voiced by Frank Welker, who is well known for voicing Scooby-Doo, and he also voiced Goddard in Jimmy Neutron, as well as Mystery the Seahorse in episode 84, My Pretty Seahorse from season 3. This is the first episode to feature a card that says The End on it, and these will show up occasionally in future episodes. The 7 Mile Spanking Machine has 2 football players without their uniforms, as well as Harold, despite just talking to SpongeBob. How did they change so fast? And this is the 3rd time SpongeBob got split in half. The first 2 being episodes 36, Texas from season 1, when Sandy karate chops a tree and gets SpongeBob with it, and 73, Procrastination from season 2, at the very end when he realizes he's stressed over his paper for nothing. In my opinion, this is Sandy's only main role in season 3, as all her other appearances are just brief cameos or supporting roles. That's another reason why I really liked this episode as a kid. When I realized how little Sandy appeared in the show, I was hoping for more episodes featuring her, and always enjoyed whenever she did have a major role in an episode, and this was the only season 3 episode where she did have a major role. There are also a lot of visual gags I absolutely love, like the shot with a jellyfish on Patrick's face, the visual with the tree underwater, and SpongeBob's face when he filter feeds, just to name a few. Alright, so overall, this is still an awesome episode. One of my all-time favorites for sure, especially from season 3. I can always rely on this for a good laugh, and all the characters here are great. Lots of really funny sequences and great use of effects. Just a classic all around. Damn, after that last pair of episodes were rather controversial and I had mixed feelings about them, this duology was just what I needed. A much more positively received pair of episodes that are a lot funnier, and best of all, no controversies behind them and they haven't been pulled from TV at all. Okay, I can't do this anymore. Wait, there's more! What more can there possibly be? Well, yeah, something I didn't realize until after this latest rewatch was that apparently this pair of episodes was temporarily removed from TV in February 2020 due to I Had an Accident specifically having the theme of being scared to go outside. Really? Wait! Thankfully, unlike episode 108, Midlife Crustacean, this was only temporarily as these 2 episodes were never removed from Paramount Plus, and they also resumed airing on TV 2 years later in 2022. Okay then, at least this wasn't permanent, and I didn't know about this until now, but are you kidding me? What human being was scared of leaving their house in 2020? They're really coming up with any excuse to censor or ban beloved childhood classics, won't they? Why not remove episode 378, Copy Bob Ditto Pants from season 9 because Plankton mentions jaundice? Why not delete episode 31, Suds from season 1 because SpongeBob got sick? Why not ban episode 198, Krabby Road from season 6 because the title is a reference / parody to the Beatles album Abbey Road? I just can't take it anymore. If they temporarily remove an episode like this because of some stupid petty reason that's completely unrelated to the episode in question, humanity. I Had an Accident is an awesome episode. So many funny scenes and great character moments that I can't really go on without repeating myself, so I'll just say that it's undeniably great and one of my favorites from Season 3. And hey, even better, turns out my leg injury was a valid excuse to get out of jury duty, so now I don't have to worry about finding out what it was I did wrong after all.